4:37, November the 21st, 2014. It's Friday. Yeah, there was another guy that I dated at the Postal Service, and I think he would have married me too, but, so, those are different options to look at, and I should have played the field more, I think, but I really was in love with Earl. I loved him very much, and he has a charismatic personality. He's an interesting person to talk to. He has a lot of drive and initiative, and that's what's so bizarre about him is the way he made those choices. And I wonder about him in his mind. What does he think about now? Because Jake is 13. He left when Jake was 7, and Jake is now 6 years older. And those were very tough years for Jake and me, and he did everything he could to make them tough years for us. The threats that he made towards me, and all that kind of stuff. And I just wonder, in the things that he did, does he ever regret any of it? And knowing the monster that he is, I doubt that he does. But children are precious, and I wish that I could take back the last 6 years and redo them and make them happier years for Jake. But Jake's a strong kid, and he's learned a lot through a lot of adversity. And he's got a good head on his shoulders, too, and he's wise about money. He saved up $40, and, he thinks about managing money issues, stuff like that. And, he's learned it from a young age. And, so maybe he just had to learn it early. But even when Earl hadn't left yet, Jake called Earl by Earl's first name. And it's because Earl was gone so much when Jake was a baby. I mean, there were some years when he was at home too, but he never called him Daddy. He always called him Earl. And that's because he didn't really know him. And I think about the bad things that happened, and it just, whew, Jake's a great kid, and I've been so lucky to be his mom. And, he has a lot to look forward to in life. And, I wouldn't trade anything for my son. Because, we're a family, and, times are tough and things are bad, but, we're a family, and we know we are. He doesn't call me Jeanette, and, we enjoy our time together, playing cards, going to the movies or eating pizza or whatever, He doesn't hate me, and, he doesn't understand right now why I haven't called back Dr. Robinson, but I just, the emotional aspect of it for me is just the humiliation I experienced that day, and the school board office when Mr. Graham did what he did and started screaming for security and stuff just because I wanted the list to see the schools I was banned from, and hollering up the hallway and everybody in the office knowing it. That was so humiliating, and just to be barbecued like that. And then when I went to talk to Dr. Robinson, she said, if something happened, you better tell me now because I'm going to find out. I'm like, okay. You know, and I hadn't done anything wrong, and knowing that the list in itself was illegal to begin with, that she shouldn't have even batted an eye at it. And then telling me the message I got from her secretary was that I had to meet with her again and had to come to some agreements with her. And I wouldn't have handled it that way at all. I would have just been like, yeah, okay, the list is invalid. Obviously, there's some discrepancies here. You didn't ever work at this school. This school, you worked a full day, and they said you left early. So somebody didn't have their information right, so it's not reliable. There's nobody in this office was there. And so, you know, I would make the rule for principals that if they ever chose to exclude anyone from substituting at their school, that they would have to notify the school board personnel office, and then the personnel office should have to investigate and find out what the reason was, because the reasons are so arbitrary. Anyway, you know, and I can fight that battle, and I'm sure if I got a lawyer, I would probably win. But it's emotionally devastating to experience that and to know somebody's jacking you around, like Mr. Allen in the hallway told me. I said, you know what, this is the list he got here. And I started telling him this list. I haven't even worked at this school. He says I left early and I worked the full day there. I was just put in a different classroom because I could handle a girl on a ventilator. I wasn't trained to, you know. He's like, well, you know, we'll just let the lawyers handle it. And he was basically telling me, you know, so what? We don't care. Yeah, whatever. You got a problem, whatever it is, too bad. Get a lawyer and sue us, and then we'll work it out in court. But right now, you're not getting a paycheck from us anymore. And we're going to do this to you just because we can, even if we're wrong. And to know that you're working for somebody that has no problem doing that to you, you know, that is life. And I mean, I was homeless. I worked for employers that were terrible. You know, I worked a construction site from dawn till dusk, picking up bricks and stuff, cleaning up construction trash, boards, and nails and stuff like that. And you know, they're terrible employers out there. I know what it's like to sit there and wait from, you know, before the sun comes up, you know, until 11 o'clock in the morning for somebody to give you a job so that you can make enough money in one day to maybe pay for a hotel room one night. So you wanted to sleep on the street. You know, that's tough. And you would think that it wouldn't be so tough, but it is. And we'd walk miles. We had to walk miles sometimes just to get there before dawn to be in line to get a job. And then usually for 2 minutes, a guy would come out and say, I want you, 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 and you, and the rest of everybody was just left standing there to wait and see if somebody's going to come out and ask for somebody else, you know, and that was all, you know. And I mean, that was unbelievable to work that hard just to get, you know, maybe $40 for 8 hours of work after taxes and everything, $40 or $50 maybe, you know, to be paid minimum wage when you're working right alongside people making $12, $15 an hour, you know. You know, those are hard things to go through, and I would never want to go through it again. But there are people out there that struggle every day just for enough pennies, to buy enough food to eat in one day. They're out there. And as easy as I thought it was when I was in my 20s, living in the best neighborhood in town, and how hard could this be when I was, in college, if I had known what I know now, what I would have done differently. And it's easy to think, this is easy and life is good and how hard is this can be, but when it all disappears and goes away and you find yourself on your ear without a roof over your head, and you lose everybody that you know and people that you cared much about and really thought of as family suddenly hate you, you just feel like you've been swept off the face of the earth to go through that kind of stuff, and so, that's all I know. So I hope when he grows up he doesn't wander too far, and I hope that I can tread water at least and steady myself enough that I can be supportive to him. And I hope that he manages to avoid pitfalls like being seduced by a woman who gets him to get her pregnant and, whoops, didn't mean to do that, but now I have a baby type situation, without being able to plan his future. Things like that happen to everybody, I hope that he can enforce his boundaries in relationships and I hope that all the bad things people say about me and as much public humiliation as Jake and I have been through, especially in Shreveport and Bossier, that they won't hold that against him and won't treat him badly. And if they do, I hope that, he'll be able to have somebody support him through it and help him when people do such terrible things as what happened to me at the school board. And that's why I didn't call her back. I know that life is hard and that people are assholes. I know that because I've been through it. I was through that before Jake was ever born. I know that, and that's tough, and that's life, and when it happens, just deal with it. And you do. But you just, you go through as much as I've been through in the school system already, and the terrible things that have happened in the schools that I've worked in, people playing the games that they played with me, and then to go down there and be treated that way. That is, it was too much for me to call her back and go in there and negotiate with her over what I would imagine would have been agreements for counseling or psychiatric evaluations or monitoring, probably agreeing to whatever terms the jackass with a badge that's done all this to me to begin with would want, who I don't know who that cop is. I would never do stuff like that to somebody. And I would never sit back and do stuff like that to somebody and then be such a coward as to hide my face from them, not tell them I'm doing it, so as to avoid responsibility, and then tell everybody how stupid they are and call them and say they're doing things that they've never done, and then get a paycheck for it and then say they deserve it. I would never do that. And I couldn't do that to somebody. And I know this is the big bad world, and that's reality, and there's people out there who do it. I've worked for, in, like, when I worked at the post office, I mean, the tension there was so tough between the management and the employees there that the union fights and people getting fired for BS reasons. And, I mean, they had postal inspectors following employees around and videotaping them, and they did. And there were employees there that ended up in psych wards because of the stress. One guy was a letter carrier, and he was being followed by the postal inspectors. He called the cops, and they opened up the van because he told them, "Look, I've got checks and everything in here. I'm being followed around by this van." And he called the cops, and they made them open the postal inspector's van, and they all showed their badges. They were postal inspectors surveilling him. He was a letter carrier. But it was an unmarked van, so I was followed around by that van, and coworkers were and stuff like that. And, that kind of corporate warfare type of attitude, you can sue your employer for wrongful termination, and you should when it happens, but that doesn't change the damage that it does to you. It doesn't change that. And it's unspeakable for me to realize that, to know if I ever walk into that school board office again, that all the people who worked there were there that day when Mr. Graham was screaming for security and all that stuff, and did what he did, and I videotaped it, you can see it. And that it was all just a big joke, and, I mean, my ego, I guess you want to say that's what it is, and forget about the pain that it causes you. You got a kid to feed, Jeanette. Go back and do whatever she says so you can keep your job. Well, my question is, do you really want to work for somebody that's capable of doing things like that? And how does that really benefit you to do that? And, you don't have a choice, and you do it anyway. I've had no choice, and I've done it anyway. When I worked in construction and stuff like that, and, bosses that were just too demanding and didn't want to pay anything but minimum wage, and you did backbreaking work, and walked miles to do it. That was too much for anybody. So, I don't know, I guess I went through that, and I know what that feels like. And, I can't, it's hard for me to take the thought of walking into that office again and those people there all knowing what happened there that day. And then not knowing what she's going to say, and that she's going to play games with me when I know what she should have done. I've got enough experience myself, and I've worked for good employers too, and I know what I've been through since then, and there's no mercy, so, why call it something that it's not? And let's play pretend some more? Really? Is that what we need to do? I don't think we do. I want my job back, and I want to work every day, and I wish I was still substitute teaching so I could accomplish my goals. This accusation that I don't really want to work and that I just want to rely on a pedophile to support me, no, that's not even close to being true. And I would never do that. And if that's what this turns into, I'm not going to have my wages taken from me, and I'm not going to be, treated that way, because that's not what I'm about in my future, and trying to become, self-sufficient, and, and all that kind of stuff. Those were always my goals, and I worked tirelessly for them. I used to file 100 applications a day, and, you know, and, I wish that I had made better choices at different parts of my life. I didn't know any better in things, even in our situation in the last 6 years that Jake and I've been in. I wish, I had done, gone this way instead of that way. But I've never done anything illegal. I've never done drugs a day in my life. I don't drink alcohol and get drunk and just sit on my ass and not do anything. And, so, that's what Jake's wondering is why didn't you just call her back? Because it will be more of the same as what I expect. And the bottom line is that just the horror of what I went through with Mr. Graham alone, that was so horrific to experience and so humiliating. And for nobody to be willing to take responsibility for that and just act like it never happened. And not realize, I'm a human being, and, you can't do this, and how dare you, and, they would never do that to other people that work for the school board. They did it to me because of my situation, and this jackass with a badge just playing games with me. You want to go to the mat with me, and you want me to fight over construction jobs at 5 o'clock in the morning before the sun comes up without transportation where I have to walk for 5 miles. I've done that, and I did it while I was pregnant, and I worked from dawn till dusk, because of what happened to us at LSUS when the cops broke in there and said that Earl, I was pregnant with Jake at LSU, but, saying that Jake's endangered and all. Why? Just because you can, and you don't sit back and beat your chest and say, see, she's guilty and it's all her fault? I'm not doing this to anybody. I don't molest children. I don't do anything wrong. And you can say it all day long, but that's not going to make it true. And I would never do those things. There's some just, and to just make me into a pariah. Where everybody is brainwashed into thinking, oh yeah, she's a scumbag of the earth. It's okay to do this to her because she's not really human. Yeah, I really am. And if you can't see that and it's okay for you to do this, then this isn't going to get any better for me. And I love my son, and the whole reason this is happening is to take him from me to begin with. Well, I'm not guilty of anything I'm accused of, so you're basically asking me to choose between jumping into a pot of boiling oil or sit in a pot of boiling oil that I'm already in. Either way, it's still boiling oil, isn't it? If I work at the school board or don't work at the school board. And I think Exxon proved that very clearly. And, still the things that continue to just blatantly occur and destroy my life and Jake's life. So, at this point, that's what it looks like. And it makes me furious to know. What really pisses me off is whoever's doing this, playing these games like this and hiding from me like this, is doing it to get a paycheck and try to say that he or she is supervising me and my son. Well, nobody's supervising me. Hiding in the office at Circle K when I got there today and never showing your face to me and claiming to be supervising me. I drove myself there. I sat there and listened, and I learned the material all by myself. Nobody had to read anything to me. Nobody had to, help me because I'm disabled and can't understand. It's not supervising somebody. I supervised children for 5 years. I know what supervision requires. You can't supervise somebody by hiding in a back office and just telling everybody a bag of lies so you can sit there and hide in the back office and get a paycheck for it. What kills me is knowing the kids that I've met in my classrooms. I remember one school I worked at, there was a student there that was homeless that a teacher was trying to help. She was just staying with different friends because her home environment was so bad. And the teacher was telling me, yeah, social services won't do anything about it. And here I am getting jobs that would have paid me $40,000 a year, and some jackass with a badge wants to spend this much time and energy focused on me because he thinks or she thinks that I might do something wrong. But maybe she might be a pedophile and we say she's doing all these things. Well, no, I'm not, and I never have. So fuck you, asshole. I'm sorry you don't want to work for a living, but there's plenty of places that you could be spending your time instead of destroying my son's reputation and mine too, and I mean that. I've had to fight tooth and nail to defend Jacob. And that's why I'm sitting here in this car instead of going to that library, because I don't want anybody to harass me. And I know that Jake is probably being harassed too. He's not going to tell me though. And he looks at it as, there's no solution. I'm not able to do anything about it. Well, you know what? The jackass with a badge that's doing it's not doing anything about it either. And he could stop any time, or she could stop any time. We're not guilty. My son doesn't do drugs. He's never done drugs, delivered drugs, never walked the streets. Roland said that lie to my face. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, oh, you and Jake, y'all were just out walking on the roads, and y'all just walked out. I said, no, Roland, what the hell are you talking about? I just parked a Durango here. That was just a sound bite. And that's how I know they're editing the audio monitoring that we're doing. And because that would have immediately gotten Roland disqualified from testifying because he made a statement that was blatantly false and falsifying testimony. And a cop supervising an informant or taking testimony from somebody would have immediately discredited him for that. So that's how I know who the jackass behind this is. Nothing but a scumbag making a living off of innocent people, targeting me and my son because we're white and well-educated and just chose not to do those types of things while he model coddles drunks and dopeheads. And from what I can tell, that's pretty much what goes on in Shreveport. Is what it looks like to me. If 80% of the juvenile cases, the kids are forced to waive their constitutional rights. And it doesn't take much to figure that out, does it? I know that I'm not guilty and there was never any reason for anybody to do this to me and my son. And I'm not going to say or agree to supervision. I've never been asked to, for one thing, but why would I? I'm the only person who's ever supervised Jake. I'm the one who cooks his meals. I'm the one who pays his bills. If we're homeless, it's because I didn't, couldn't make it work. But nobody else is stepping up to the plate, and taking those responsibilities. I have to pay, Roland, $300, $500 for rent. Roland hadn't paid his either, so, I wouldn't, and, you say inability to support yourself. Now, what are the reasons that I don't have those checks now? Tell me what are those reasons, because I don't have a job. Why don't I have a job? Would you like the videotape of the wrongful termination of Exxon, or would you prefer the videotape of the wrongful termination of the school board, right? Or whichever one, right? Because it's that blatant and everybody knows it, and if anybody started doing interrogatories and questioning everybody, that would be plainly true. Yeah, I need a lawyer, and I need somebody to do some serious kick-ass legal work for me and my son. I've talked to many lawyers, though, and when I go to those lawyers, the cop is always, there's always somebody there. There was a tall, skinny guy hanging out in the back of one lawyer's office, and I saw him hanging back there. It was a tall, skinny black man. So, I mean, I can't go talk to him, like the lawyer I went and talked to about divorce. She blatantly falsified her testimony, trying to say that I didn't want to pay for the divorce to go through, when I told her when I was going to start working in U.S. support. That's another wrongful termination. And I hadn't even gotten my first paycheck yet, and she sent me a letter saying that I had refused to pay her, and she had advised me the last time I saw her not to file for the divorce until August. And so she was doing that, and when I went to her office, she'd leave her office door open so she could claim I had no rights to privacy. And she sat there and questioned me like she was a prosecutor about Jake, trying to prove and say that I was a pedophile and stuff, So that's all anticipated, and people are given heads up and told things about me that aren't true, and they believe them to be true because whoever's saying them has a badge who will not face me and will not allow me to testify on my own behalf, and just wants to run around saying that what he or she says is true. Well, no, that's not true. First of all, whoever that person is has never had anything to do with me and Jake, is never present in our home. So what first-hand knowledge would that person have to begin with? Spying on me and Jake with surveillance equipment? You'd rather do that, really, than go to a judge and get a court order for supervision? Really? And then you're trying to say that you're supervising me, and then I've got to compete with you to control my son? You check the record. I'm the one that makes all the decisions about my son. Nobody makes those choices but me. I am the person who has daily responsibility for his safety, welfare, and support. Run around town behind my back and saying all these things about me doesn't change the fact that I am the only person that has shouldered those responsibilities and have shouldered them for 6 years without assistance from anybody as a single mother, while I've been deprived of employment, friends, reputation, and publicly humiliated over and over again. And yeah, we've been very lucky because it could have been a lot worse for us. And it was pretty bad, and it has been, and it still is right now, So, give me a break. I would be a fool to walk into a courtroom and say, oh, gee, golly whiz, you're being so mean now. I'll just agree to everything you say because then you're going to be nice. No, you're not. You've done everything that I say you've done. I know you have, and so does everybody else in this city. What you don't want me to do is ever walk into a courtroom and testify, because I'll be able to prove that I'm innocent, and I'll be able to prove that these informants are all lying, and that this administrative record and everything is a completely falsified case. And there were 6 social workers that worked for the Department of Social Services in California jailed for falsifying a case, or cases. So they could remove children. I've seen stories on the internet about it. There was a woman who was dogged out for years in California by 2 investigators, juvenile investigators, whatever, that said all this crap about her wasn't true, and removed her 2 daughters. And she went and got a lawyer, and that lawyer cross-examined those 2 investigators, one of them who was promoted to supervisor after she did this to this woman and her 2 daughters. It took her 2 years to get her daughters back, and that lawyer cross-examined those 2 investigators on the witness stand and provided corroborating evidence and investigated the case and proved that the case was completely falsified and that they knowingly knew that they were lying and falsifying a case. And so, that is something to me that those people should have been put to death for. And it happens so much now. And the truth of it is what exactly people say that it is. That it is done for the purpose of lining the pockets of bureaucrats who do not want to work for a living, that have plenty of opportunities to go after people and children that need their help that are out there. Those two women had no reason to do that to that woman, other than the fact that they didn't want to work for a living. I read one book, I couldn't believe it. I don't know if this is true or not, but it said in the book that, you know, this, these two social workers showed up at a logger's cabin in a logging community and demanded to inspect the home environment of the children, and told the parents that they were pedophiles and that their house was a mess and they didn't clean the house enough, and that, you know, they had dirty dishes in the sink, and you know, the house was dirty, and they believed they were probably pedophiles too, but they couldn't prove it, but that, you know, they saw tendencies that there could be some concerns there for pedophilia as well and the sexual abuse of the children. And so they went up to that logging community again, and they were never seen or heard from again, and nobody knows where they are. They searched high and low for evidence. And I know if that's a true story, probably what happened to them was they took one of those, you know, out in the woods out there. They probably threw them in a wood chopping machine or something, and mailed their body parts to South America or something, to somebody in the mafia to dispose of or something, or, you know, just buried them or, you know, something like that.